Hello and welcome to Odds on Champions League Match Day. 2 games on Tuesday. We have a great lineup with Ronan Murphy. Hello, Ronan, and Alvaro Romeo to analyze this match day with Leverkusen Milan, Arsenal PSG. Some really good games and some others not that good. Slovan Bratislava Man City, for instance. So a bit for everyone. Hi to everyone. Remember to comment with us this Champions League. Remember to press the like, to subscribe. Thanks to everyone that had subscribed right now. 30,000 subscribers. So thanks to all of you. And now let's go on with the show. Let's go. Two early kickoffs on Tuesday. Not great games, to be honest. Salzburg, Brest is the first one. Brest made their Champions League debut with a win against Stuttgart. They had an easy schedule, the first two fixtures, but they are not in great form in League and with only 6 points, even lost to 𝐬𝐭𝐸 at the weekend. Salzburg, also a really bad start, losing to Sparta Prague. Alvaro is still really low odds to back Salzburg. Perhaps it's good to go for a surprise here and Brest getting something from Austria.
I think that this game is a great opportunity to give it a proper pass, really, between you and I, guys. But anyway, if I had to go for something, maybe I would stick to with the experience of Salzburg at home. Not that at home they have been formidable lately. I remember, for example, Real Sociedad just destroying them there last season. They started the Champions League, Salzburg and saying in really bad fashion, losing to Sparta Prague 3-0. Then in the local league, they are not particularly great right now. We have to say that they are third, that they got 13 points out of 18. So, not the best possible start, but Brest, despite having won the game against Sturm Graz, and we have to say, by the way, that they became the first French side this century to win their first ever Champions League game, something that Montpellier or Lille couldn't do. Despite all that, Brest is not a formidable opponent either. They have conceded a lot of goals in France this season. They have conceded 13 in 6 games. So this game is either a high-scoring one, something that I could see, not very, very high, but definitely over 2.5 goals, which would fit the average of goals that we have seen in the Champions League so far. Or maybe Salzburg to win is a good one here, 185. Since Salzburg is not totally reliable for the reasons I explained before, maybe Asian handicap minus 0.25 for them, 157 is about right. Otherwise, for me, this game is a goodbye.
Okay, Mili is also saying goodbye to this game. Raymond, Brest away, dreadful. Ronan?
Yeah, Salzburg at home have been dreadful. So I think this is two dreadful teams. Salzburg have lost all 3 home games in Europe last season, and they're winless in 6 games in the Champions League, 5 losses and 1 draw. So that's their longest winless run in the competition. So this is kind of one of these ones, both teams to lose sort of a game. But I think Salzburg have better ability. They have more ability. They're more used to maybe this competition. This is Brest's first ever away game in the Champions League, and like Alvaro said, they won their first game, and they'd be the first team, only the second French team in history to win their first 2 games in the European Cup or the Champions League. So they're looking to make history, but I'm not sure they can. Salzburg, like you said, they had a difficult opening game. They lost 3-0 to Sparta Prague, but the goals, the scoreline maybe doesn't tell the full story of the game. They had 71% possession. They kind of were dominant in possession. They just couldn't turn their possession into chances. And then when Prague got their chances, they took them and scored. So I think Salzburg can bounce back here because they are a team capable of winning. We saw it again. They kind of bounced back in the league as well. They beat Austria Vienna. Oscar 𝐿 scored twice. He can be a difference maker on his day. This one, I think, could have goals in it. That's maybe where you're looking at any sort of value or interest in this one. Both teams to score, yes, 1.72. But I think because Brest are missing some key players, especially in defence, Loco and Dari are missing, and 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐺𝐴 missed the 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐲 game due to an illness. Maybe he mightn't be back. I think advantage for Salzburg and me. I like it as well. RB Salzburg to win 1.8 looks like the best option here.
Well, David is going Salzburg all the way, as well as you, Ronan. There is someone very happy about you first half draw. I don't know in which game, actually. Could have been this one. Also, someone very happy about Alvaro's predictions for Barca game. Not sure also if it was the Champions League or the Osasuna game. So people are happy, probably not to bet in Salzburg Brest, but let's see if in Stuttgart, Sparta Prague, maybe we see a lot of goals in this one, because Stuttgart is a very offensive team with really high scoring games, 2-2, for instance, in the Bundesliga. Last one against Wolfsburg with 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐺𝐴 really in form. Against Real Madrid, they created many chances. They couldn't score, only one goal. Against Dortmund, 5, and Sparta Prague had the perfect comeback to the Champions League. So perhaps Ronan is good to go for goals here.
Yes, definitely. And if you look at Stuttgart, they've had both teams to score, yes, in every game except the 5-0 win over Preußen Munster in the first round of the Cup. So that was the very first game they kicked off the season with, and they're in the second division in Germany. So since then, they've had both teams to score, yes, in every single game. And there's been 4+ goals in every single Stuttgart game this season in every competition. Not the Bundesliga, not the Champions League, everything. Every time they play it, there's loads of goals in Stuttgart games. So that's just what to expect from them. They're not great at the back. They love attacking. So Dennis 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐺𝐴, like you said, he is a player who's capable of scoring in any goal or any game. He scored in the 97th minute to get that draw against Wolfsburg at the weekend. He has 6 goals and 1 assist in 8 games this season. So he's a great option for an anytime goal scorer, 2.40. I like the look of total goals, obviously, in this one. Total goals over 3.25 is 2 in this one. Sparta, they played a 5-goal thriller at the weekend, so both teams to score is good for them as well. They kept a lot of their first team players. They named 10 of the 11 players from their opening Champions League game in their game at the weekend, so they might be a bit tired coming into this one. So I like Stuttgart to win and over 2.5 goals. That's 1.80. But with 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐺𝐴 keep scoring in every competition he plays in, Stuttgart to win and 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐺𝐴 to score 2.15 is my tip for this one.
Plenty of options. Stuttgart to win is only 1.46. That's why Ivan or Rick, for instance, are adding up goals. Alvaro, you go for the same?
Yeah, I think that Stuttgart is going to win it. I think the goals will happen. So, the combinations are there. So it's down to you to choose exactly what's the best one, the most correct for you. But, Stuttgart to win 149, 150, yeah. Sounds almost like a safe bet. But you have to spice it up a little bit. And I think that the likes of Asian handicap -1 for Stuttgart, for example, is something that I would be looking at. 167. Otherwise, the biggest money for me is to be made if you go for Stuttgart to score in both halves, 198. But yeah, the bookmakers expect goals and they expect Stuttgart to win. And I think that Ronan and I also believe that. Stuttgart was quite good against Real Madrid, I would say. They did very well, but the goalkeeper, 𝗵𝗏𝗏, had a night to forget, and that helped Real Madrid a lot. In the Bundesliga, they are 8th, which is obviously worse than last season, but they have scored 14 goals in 5 games, which is a lot. They have also conceded many. And they beat Dortmund 5-1 this season. So, I expect them to be again in the front foot again, and it's going to be very interesting to see them. When it comes to Sparta Prague, look, they have scored in every game they have played this season, and this season for them goes back to July. This is when they started playing the Champions League qualification. So both teams could score, yes, but I prefer to focus in something like an Asian handicap -1 for Stuttgart, 167, or otherwise Stuttgart to score in both halves, because they've got the real potential to do it, 198.
Well, German goalkeepers doing badly against Real Madrid or at Bernabeu. This rings a bell. I don't know, Karius, Neuer last season. I remember also another Bayern goalkeeper making a big mistake with Benzema. I forgot his name.
Sven Ulreich, was it?
Ulreich, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was at the stadium, I have to say, that day. Very happy about it. Stuttgart and over then for this one. Then this is the appetizers. Let's go for big games in Germany as well. Leverkusen, Milan. We saw a draw in Bayern against Bayer Leverkusen. I guess Leverkusen was happy because Bayern, they had much more chances, but also their Champions League debut was great, 4-0 away against Feyenoord. Also on the opposite, Milan had a very bad debut, 3-1 at home against Liverpool. Their schedule in the Champions League is so difficult for Milan, but in the positive side is like it looks like the win against Inter in the derby might have changed the season for them, Alvaro.
Oh yeah, definitely. They got 2 wins after that, and I think that it was very impressive to see how after getting defeated by Liverpool in comprehensive fashion was followed by beating Milan in the Derby de la Madonnina, being competitive with Leao, for example, having 2 very clear chances that Sommer managed to save somehow, but then 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐴 scored the winning goal in the stoppage time, and then they beat Lecce this weekend as well. So with goals from Morata, Theo Hernandez, Christian Pulisic, who has been to date the best player of Milan so far. So, I think there has been a recovery in Milan, that's for sure. But Bayer Leverkusen may be a little bit too much for them. I don't know about that. But it looks like Milan right now, they are more comfortable stepping on Italian grounds than stepping on European grounds. And Leverkusen started the season again with certain authority, and the Champions League especially. They won with a clean sheet in the first game. And true, they conceded a lot of goals at the start of the season. They shipped 9 goals in the first 4 games in the Bundesliga. But after that, I think that what we saw in the Champions League and what we saw against Bayern Munich tells us that Leverkusen is very close to getting to the level they had last season. And they are a scoring force, really. They have failed to score only in 2 of their last 60 matches. That's an incredible display of power up front. And I think that this game is going to be either both teams to score, because Milan has, firepower, and on top of that, Leverkusen, especially in early September, late August, was leaky. But I prefer Bayer Leverkusen to win. That pays 170. If you want to combine these 2 orientations and giving our listeners maybe something like that, a double chance for Leverkusen and over 1.5 goals, because I think that goals will happen. It's something that could be interesting, but I prefer Bayer Leverkusen to win, plain and simple, 168.
Did you like the game in Munich, Ronan?
Yeah, I think it was kind of what we were expecting, that Bayern Munich maybe would dominate and Leverkusen would hope to defend better than they'd been defending all season. So they were able to pick up a point, and I think Leverkusen will be happy with that, because Bayern Munich on another day, they could have scored lots of goals. But the shooting boots weren't really there, and Harry Kane didn't get on the score sheet, but some of the other forwards kind of let Bayern Munich down. So it was a disappointing performance, I think, or a result at least for Bayern Munich. But I think it kind of showed us what Vincent Kompany's sides can look like going forward, and that was their first test of the season. But at the same time, it was a good result for Bayer Leverkusen, and it was good for them to kind of keep their squad fit, their players fit going into this match against AC Milan, because I think they can pick up another 3 points here in the Champions League and set themselves on a great start to the Champions League to advance into the knockout stage, because that's probably their main goal this season. I'm not sure they're convinced themselves they can win the Bundesliga 2 seasons in a row, but they want to make themselves a powerful team in Europe again, and a regular in the Champions League, and maybe a regular in the knockout stages of the Champions League. So they can do that, and they should be confident that they can do something here. Like Alvaro said, that's his main tip for this one, and I like the look of Leverkusen winning this one too. But I also like to look at lots of goals in this game for both teams, because only Feyenoord and �𝐼 are the only teams who have failed to score against Bayer Leverkusen this season. They're just not very good at the back because they like scoring so many goals. They've scored 3 or more goals in every Bundesliga game until that Bayern Munich game. They scored 4 in their opening match in the Champions League. Milan have had 3 or more goals in every match they've played this season. There's been 3 or 4 total match goals in their game. So both teams to score, yes, looks a great option here, 1.60. Leverkusen win, like Alvaro said, but I like to look at the goals market here. Total goals over 3, 1.91, I think will be a good option here.
Tough game, this one for Milan. They could go to match day 3 with 0 points, and in match day 4 they face Real Madrid. Leverkusen to score over 1.5 goals for Mills. David is the only one in an under game, under 3.5 goals in his opinion. Both teams to score. For MMA, this is a must-watch game for 𝗀𝗵𝗵𝗀, and I completely agree. Let's see also if we see, for instance, a good European night for Alvaro Morata after scoring in Serie A. And let's stay in Germany, and perhaps also we see plenty of goals. Why not in Dortmund Celtic? Because also Dortmund games have been high scoring ones. 4-2 in the Bundesliga. They were 2-0 down, bouncing back after that heavy defeat against Stuttgart. It looks like 𝐻𝐵RACY is recently in the score sheet. And remember also that the first game in Bruges ended with 3 goals, 3-0. And also, Ronan, we saw a lot of goals in Celtic games, 5-1 against Slovan Bratislava, but also in the Scottish League, they are running riots. 20 goals scored in the last 5 games. So it should be a lot of goals in this European night.
Yeah, you would hope so. And that Celtic win over St. Johnstone at the weekend was a masterful display of football. Celtic looked brilliant. If you haven't seen the 𝐴𝐷𝐵𝐸 goal, I think it was for their 5th or 6th goal in that one. It's worth checking out. There was a lovely back heel in the box, a flicked back heel in the box before Ida put it away. It was just a fantastic team goal. It's one of the best goals you'll see this season. But Celtic are scoring so many goals in the league that it's not surprising that some of these goals look really good, because they, in their last 3 games, they've beaten Slovan Bratislava 5-1, they've beaten Falkirk 5-2, and 6-0 against St. Johnstone. And then you have Borussia Dortmund. They're more or less the same. They have 6 goals in each of their last 3 games in the league. 2 4-2 wins, and then that 5-1 defeat to Stuttgart. So these teams just serve up a lot of goals. Don't expect much defending whatsoever. Expect lots of attacking and expect lots of goals. So that we're hoping for a great entertainment in this one. Maybe not the most technical game you'll ever see. It won't be one of these tactical masterclasses where each team cancels each other out. Just whoever can score the most goals will win. But that should be Dortmund, because they have a much better squad. So Dortmund win 1.54 there on the screen. Looks really good. Total goals over 3, 1.91 is another great option. But I think Dortmund are going to pepper the Celtic goal throughout. This is going to be a very busy game for Celtic's defence, Celtic's goalkeeper, Celtic's midfielder, Celtic's everything are going to be busy in this one. So my overall tip here is a bit of a combination. Dortmund to win over 2.5 goals and over 7.5 corners is 2.25.
Okay, make sure you put this in a bookie with a build a bet feature. Otherwise, you are not going to find it. And most of our audience, Alvaro, are going also for Celtic to be in the score sheet. They think they are able to score in the Signal Iduna Park.
Well, so far they are the second highest scoring side in the Champions League with 5 goals scored, but the sample size is tiny. It's only 1 game. But they scored 4 goals in the second half against Slovan Bratislava. You know, you can only praise that. At the end of the day, we're talking about a side that have found it very difficult to even compete in the Champions League group stage over the last 15 years. So it was a very good start. And it was the highest scoring performance in the Champions League group stage for Celtic. And then in their league, they are also scoring many goals. I always say that the Scottish League couldn't be, obviously, the sample size of anything. We have to take with a pinch of salt what happens in Scotland, in the Netherlands. not being disrespectful, but obviously Celtic sometimes finds it too easy there, and this weekend they won 6-0 away. But there are some dynamics that exist. And for example, Celtic is scoring a lot of goals domestically, and so far in the Champions League, I repeat, only in one game, and they have kept 6 clean sheets in the league so far. So, they are having a good season, even for their own standards domestically, but they are playing against Dortmund, and Dortmund, they were smoked by Stuttgart not long ago, but this weekend, for example, they triggered a good comeback against Bochum in one of the regional games. I think Marcel Sabitzer is going to be a doubt, but still, there is plenty of talent there. I agree, 𝐻𝐵RAXi should be one of the candidates to score a goal for sure. And I'm going to back Dortmund to win 148. Yeah, that could go in an ACCA or as a safe bet if you like. But I'm going to back them with a -1 Asian handicap. Then the odds go up to 178.
Well, 𝐻𝐵RAXi anytime scorer. Also for Ian and MMA says Celtic won't go far in the Champions League as usual. Be careful because as we said in our previous video, they had an easy schedule. They are facing Atalanta away, but then Leipzig, Bruges at home, or Dinamo Zagreb away. So they have a real chance this time to be at least in the playoffs in this Champions League. European royalty next. Arsenal PSG, what a game this one. I have to love the odds for PSG, by the way. Check them out here. The bookies place Arsenal really favorites here. We just learned, by the way, that Dembélé is gonna miss this trip to the British capital. PSG won all the games this season but one against Reims. Arsenal won also in the injury time this weekend. And they've had a really tough schedule also, Alvaro, in the Premier League, but they keep getting really good results, this Arsenal, even that game at the Etihad that we saw 10 days ago.
Yeah, that's true. This is a game, between two sides that have a very similar, even honor list, I would say. I know that Paris Saint-Germain was created in the 70s and Arsenal way before, but still in European levels, European terms, they are very similar. One big European trophy for each of them. Well, not the biggest, obviously, because they haven't won the Champions League, but one European trophy for them apiece. And both of them reached a Champions League final, at least one. Yes, PSG in 2020 and Arsenal in 2006 in this century. So, we can say that they can look at each other and say, yeah, I know how it feels to lose a Champions League final. But this game is pretty decent. I think that the odds are clearly back in Arsenal, as you will see in the screen soon. That's why, if I am ready to take a massive gamble in this show, it will be Paris Saint-Germain to win, just for fun, almost. If I got some money to spare, it's not that I am promoting here like reckless gambling or just burning your money, but Paris to win, actually, which is something that is going to be difficult, but still it pays 5. I think that it's a little bit disproportionate, to be honest. Totally. Even though we have to say as well that Dembélé is one of the important assets of Paris, and the fact that he got an argument with Luis Enrique and he's not in the matchday squad is going to change a lot, even the way PSG plays, because sometimes when the opponent defends very deep, Paris gives the ball to Dembélé for him to, produce some magic on the right flank, and this time that's not going to happen. I guess that 𝐿𝐭𝐴 will be more likely to play. Asensio, if he is ready for the game because he was doubtful, may have a chance on the right. But, let's see how it goes. I think that Paris Saint-Germain is a team that can compete toe-to-toe with Arsenal, but Arsenal is slightly better in my opinion, and they've got even better players, I would say. One of them is missing, Martin Odegaard, as we know, and then I like Arsenal's defense this season. I think that the additions of Timber and Calafiori, but especially Timber, are giving Arsenal some intensity and even some bad vibes, but in a good sense, like defensive sense, like aggressiveness and all that. Maybe Arsenal were missing with the likes of 𝐿𝐭𝐴 in the lineup, but this is pretty leveled, in my opinion. Even a double chance for Paris, 205, you could consider that. But I think that the big gamble But the big money to be made is also in Paris to win. So Paris to win 5.0 is good. Otherwise, if you want to go for the safest possible bet, Asian handicap +1 for Paris Saint-Germain, 163.
This is a good one. Also, I really like this one that 𝐬𝐭𝐴 is telling us. Barcola over 0.5 shots on target, 2.10. He's been the best player so far this season, Ronan, for PSG.
Yeah, one of the notes that I've written down is Barcola anytime scorer, that's 5. So if you think he can continue to the form he's shown in the Champions League, that he continue his domestic form into the Champions League, that could be one that's worth looking at, because the value seems to be all in the PSG side of things rather than the Arsenal side of things. I think the bookies, like we've said, are maybe underestimating them a little, maybe because like Celtic in Scotland, the league maybe is oftentimes, or some of the league matches can be oftentimes too easy for them, but the Champions League is a different kettle of fish, a hugely different competition. But like Alvaro was trying to say, but I think he said it more diplomatically, these teams aren't European royalty, Edu. You have to wear a crown to be royalty. Neither of these teams have worn the crown, so they're not European royalty. When you were introducing the game, I was waiting for you to go into a different match, perhaps Real Madrid, but not Arsenal and PSG. So we'll see can either of them become European royalty in the next few years, but perhaps not this season. This one is one that could go either way, obviously. So the value does look to be in PSG. The last 2 meetings between them back in 2016, 2017 in the Champions League were both draws, 2-2 in London and 1-1 in Paris. So this one could be an option for a draw, or like Alvaro has it in his main tip, PSG Asian handicap. So I looked at PSG Asian handicap +3/4. That's 1.91 is another option. Both teams to score, yes, I like the look of here, because I think there could be goals in this one. Hard to separate the sides. So both teams to score, yes, is 1.73, but I want to combine that with both teams to score yes and over 7.5 corners for my main tip here. That's 2.05.
Well, Arsenal are the third favorite to win the Champions League, surprisingly, in my opinion, and PSG the 7th. So these are kind of two candidates, but be careful with Arsenal, because as we know, they drew in the first game, and their schedule in this Champions League is so tough. They were unlucky, I would say, in the draw. They play Shakhtar at home, okay, and then Inter and Sporting Lisbon away, and Monaco at home. So be careful with Arsenal. And thanks for 30k subscribers, as our friend Daniel is saying. Well, if you want to talk about royalty, Ronan, Barcelona, not young boys, of course. Barça, young boys is the next one, really low odds for this one, but Barcelona is under pressure after losing that opening game against Monaco, playing with 10 men. Eric Garcia was sent off, and Flick knows how important is this game. He heavily rotated at the weekend, and Barcelona lost also in a good fashion in Pamplona against Osasuna. These are the problems for Flick, Ronan, because the squad is so short. There are a lot of injuries. The good news is probably De Jong is going to be back very soon with the team. But yeah, this Barcelona has really, really short squad for 2 competitions or 3.
Yeah, and I obviously we've seen which competition he's favouring because of that rotation against Osasuna, and it backfired horribly on him. But hopefully it will pay dividends in this match, and pay dividends for people who are backing Barcelona to win it. But you can't really back them at 1.10 on the screen. You'd need to do a bit more with them. But I think Barcelona, they'll be disappointed from that opening game, but obviously they played some of the match with 10 men, and be hoping they can play with 11 for 90 minutes here, because that'll make a huge difference. And if they can, young boys should be no match for them. They're 11th in the league in Switzerland. They lost 1-0 to Grasshoppers this weekend, and only have 6 points after 8 matches. So they're absolutely dismal season for them. They looked terrible against Aston Villa in their opening game. So Barcelona should be comfortable favourites, and that's why the odds are so favouring them. But yeah, so you'll have to look at Barcelona in an Asian handicap, perhaps in this one. Asian handicap minus 2.75 is only 1.92. So even the bookies are expecting Barcelona to win by 3 or more goals. Seems likely, but like you said, these players they need to stay fit. They don't have a huge squad, so Flick will have to play his strongest 11 probably here to get a result like that. But I think they can, and I'm not some of the ones that maybe are a bit safer than minus 2.75. Home could be a good option here. That's 1.44, and I like the look of Barcelona to win to 0, 1.80, because young boys just haven't been scoring a lot of goals this season, and it could be young boys against men out there.
Well, and we can add up 𝐻𝐵 to score is a good option. Of course, he's on fire. Even the few minutes he played in Pamplona, he scored a screamer. And 𝐻𝐵 to score from outside the box. Yohi is telling us odds are 9, really good, or usual suspects. Alvaro to add also Lewandowski to score, who seems in form.
Yeah, Lewandowski to score, but doesn't pay a lot, though. I was checking that, and it was paying very low, even under 1.55, I believe. By the time I checked it, it must have, shifted a little bit, but I'm afraid that if anything, it has shifted downwards rather than upwards. Lamel to score 2.1 is something that I was thinking about. Also, Rafinha to score 2.0 as well. I think that these are possibilities. 0 points for both, by the way, and this game is difficult to bet because I think we can all agree that Barcelona is heavy favorite here, but for us to find good value, we really have to dig deep, I think. I have found something that kind of makes sense to me, at least in my head, but then the game starts and I say, oh, what did I do? But for example, it worked for me with Bayern the other day, which is Bayern to win at 30 minutes. Well, Barcelona to win at 30 minutes here, 1.62, is something that if I put it all together with Lamine Yamal to score 2.1 and I create a little combo for this game, yes, I could go for that one, yes, and I could sit down and stay happy about it because I think that this could happen. But there is pressure for Barcelona, a lot of pressure, and I understand why they rotated against Osasuna, not heavily because they don't have a big squad right now, but it's more important probably to win this game against young boys before Bayern, let's don't forget, than beating Osasuna. I'm sorry, but that's the reality of Barcelona. Barcelona has a lot of points in the league, and they knew that this weekend either Atletico or Real Madrid were going to drop points, or even both, as it happened at the end. So it wasn't a bad decision by Hansi Flick. I can imagine that 𝐻𝐵, Yamal, Rafinha, Alejandro Balde, and Íñigo Martínez will be in the lineup. I'm pretty sure about that. And it should happen. I mean, they will try to play with 11 men. That's the only thing that I am urging Barcelona to do, because the last Champions League games they have played, the last two, they've been reduced to 10 men in the first half. And then it's impossible to win a game, really. But, go to the goals market if you like it as well, even though it's difficult to find value there. Because with Hansi Flick, when Barcelona scores the first, they go for the second. And when they score the second, they go for the third. So, Barcelona can score many goals. And the best thing for Barcelona is that an international break is coming very soon. And after the international break, it is expected that Fermín, Olmo, Frenkie, and Gavi return. And that is going to give Hansi Flick so many options in midfield. But anyway, as I said before, Barcelona to win at 30 minutes or Lamine Yamal to score. Those will be my bets.
Yeah, this would be a good game probably for Barcelona to start winning easily the first half, 2, 3, 4 goals, and then Hansi Flick can rotate. Perhaps the young boys are Barcelona, no, with all these youngsters and all these problems that they have with a short squad and with the injuries, but still doing great in La Liga, under pressure in the Champions League. Next one, also hard to find good odds, Inter Milan, Red Star. We saw Inter bouncing back in a difficult pitch. In Udine this weekend, we saw Lautaro Martinez scoring a brace. Lautaro Martinez, remember, was on the bench in the game at the Etihad Stadium, where Inter had a really good debut in the Champions League, grabbed a really deserved point, and now they have a couple of easy games against Red Star and young boys to have 7 points and be in the right spot, Alvaro, in the Champions League.
Yeah, and of course, Inter is the big favorite. I mean, I wonder how can we back Red Star here. I mean, it's been a very long time that they haven't won a game away in the Champions League, that it wasn't, in the playoffs. I mean, because their last win in the Champions League away was in August 2022. It was against Punic, then another one against Tirana in 2020, and another one against Copenhagen in the summer of 2019. In penalties, that one, by the way. But Red Star away from home, they are not a power force. Of course, we know about that. And Inter normally doesn't screw up here. I mean, they have lost only 2 of the last 16 Champions League games. Defeats against Manchester City in the Champions League final, and then I believe it was against Atletico de Madrid last season. But generally speaking, Inter is a very composed side. They drew with Manchester City the other day, playing as good as Manchester City, by the way. And I believe that Inter is going to win it here. So for me, there is a bet that I like, which is halftime, full time for Inter, home, 157. Kind of identical one in a way. Asian handicap minus 1.5 for Inter, 150. I mean, in terms of the revenue you can get. A clean sheet for Inter de Milan is something that you should be looking at as well, because the defense of Inter is really good, 183. Otherwise, the individual market, Lautaro to score 167. All this to say that there are many options in here. My individual option of Lautaro, I really like it, 167. Otherwise, maybe the Asian handicap minus 1.5 for Inter is my favorite, 1.5.
Inter will rest some players. We have this comment. Well, Taremi wasn't great at the Etihad replacing Lautaro. But let's see, Ronan, you could add into the mix this Lautaro to score could be an option?
Yeah, it definitely looks a good option. He obviously scored twice at the weekend against 𝐬𝐿𝐴, so he is in form. He tends to be the man to step up in the big moments for Inter, and there's no reason why he can't here. Well, there's one reason why he can't here. He won't start. Maybe they'll rest him because of the level of opposition. And like Alvaro said, Red Star, they don't win away in the Champions League. The last time they won away against a realistic team, a non-playoff team, was the tournament was still called the European Cup, I think. So they just don't win away in the Champions League. It just doesn't happen for them. And Inter, on the other hand, they're an excellent team at home in the Champions League. They're an excellent team defensively in the Champions League. They've got 13 clean sheets in their last 22 Champions League games. So, like Alvaro, I really like the look of Inter clean sheet here. I'm not sure Red Star will get close to them or be able to score many goals. So, yeah, Inter clean sheet looks like a great option for me. I agree with him here. And if you want to go one more to make that into a meteor bet, Inter to win to 0 looks like a good option here. That's 2. I think you could combine them, and that may be where the value is going to be, unless you're going Asian handicap route like Alvaro did.
Well, let's go to the Netherlands, a really open game. This one, PSV, Sporting Lisbon, both are top of their leagues. PSV lost to Juventus in the opening day, remember, but at home, this one is a tough stadium to win. Last season, we saw Arsenal, Dortmund, Sevilla, Lens, for instance, that couldn't win in Eindhoven, but Sporting, Ronan, they are really in form this season. They've won everything in Portugal, and they also beat Lille in the opening day of this competition.
Yeah, these are two teams that have been playing excellently domestically. Sporting, they've won every league game 3-0 since the international break. They bet Estoril 3-0 at the weekend, so they just seem to be winning 3-0 against whoever they play in the domestic league. But PSV, they're also winning every game in their domestic league. They have 7 wins from 7 games. So after their 2-0 win on Saturday, so these are teams that it's a different beast again when you step up the Champions League. But this is a similar sort of beast to each other, I suppose. The step up from the Portuguese league and the step up from the Dutch league is probably much the same when you're playing each other in the Champions League. It's not like coming face to face with a Man City or a Real Madrid or a side like that. So this is a match which I think will be very tight. I like both teams to score yes in this one, 1.52, because both teams have scored in every game. Both teams have at least scored themselves in every game in all competitions this season. Neither of them has had a scoreless game. So this is a team that this is a match that should have goals for each side in it, and Sporting will be looking to get something from here because they have Sturm Graz in their next game in the Champions League, but then it turns really difficult for them. They play Man City and Arsenal after that, so they will be looking to at least pick up a point here on the road against PSV. These teams are hard to separate, but I like the look of both teams to score, yes, but I like the look even more of both teams to score in the second half here. Sporting has scored in the second half of every game they've played in this season except the Super Cup, and PSV have scored in the second half of every game they've played this season, apart from one game, a 2-0 win over NEC in the league. So these teams tend to score goals in the second half, all but one game for each of them. They've done it. So both teams to score in the second half, yes. 2.63 is my tip for this one.
Okay, 𝐿𝐿𝐴 to score, anytime scorer. We mentioned his name in our previous show, and he scored in Lisbon against Lille. Alvaro, you received some heat for saying that PSV were gonna lose against Juventus. Someone is saying, Raymond, PSV are only good in the domestic league, but again, at home they are competitive in Europe.
Yeah, and I don't have anything against PSV Eindhoven. I just thought that it was a little bit too much to say that they were favorites against Juventus at Juventus ground. That was everything I said. But this game is interesting, and if anything, it's interesting because it will help us, find out which league is stronger right now, whether the Dutch or the Portuguese, because the Dutch leader and the team that is topping the league in Portugal are facing each other. Who is going to be stronger? Who is going to prevail? I mean, both are very strong domestically, but Sporting Lisbon started the Champions League with a win and PSV with a loss to Juventus. I mean, Peter Bosz was very unimpressed by the game against the Juventini, with a team that was a little bit toothless, I have to say, because I remember that they tried to go forward and sometimes they had the opportunity to counter-attack, but they didn't convert those counter-attacking actions into shots. In fact, they are in the Champions League right now, PSV, after playing against Juve, by the way, the sixth team in passes completed, but then they didn't produce a lot of danger either. They were toothless. For this game, Lozano and Dest are going to be out. Obviously, Lozano being out means that PSV are missing one of their main scoring assets. Tillman should be there, 4 goals for him in the Eredivisie. And, they are playing against Sporting, and Sporting basically have very similar numbers domestically. They also have 21 points out of 21. Their start of the season has been fantastic. Maybe St. Just, one of their best defenders, could be out for the game. We don't know about that yet. But maybe Sporting is slightly more dangerous, especially because a player like 𝐿𝐴 is scoring so many goals. And when he doesn't score them, he provides assists as well. Gonçalves is scoring many goals as well in the domestic league. So one of them to score, and especially 𝐿𝐴, could be a good bet, but 𝐿𝐴 even to score or assist, which obviously expands the options of him making some money for you. 𝐿𝐴 to score or assist pays around 183, which is really good money, so consider that. Otherwise, I'm going to go for over 2.5 goals in this game. I believe this can happen, really, because they are attacking sides, and in the league, they both average more or less 3 goals per game. So over 2.5 goals in this game, 1.60.
Okay, Yohi, draw no bet for Sporting. Filosofia thinks we are going to see a lot of unders in this second match day. I expect a lot of goals on Tuesday. At least, if you want to know what we think about Wednesday games, we have another video in the channel later on, so you can check it. And I expect a lot of goals in the last game in Bratislava, Slovan Bratislava. Man City, probably the most uneven game in the history of the Champions League, but it's away. Slovan conceded 5 against Celtic. We know how Man City works, how many goals Man City can score, Alvaro, or perhaps we saw it last season that since Man City had a lot of games, they score a couple or 3, and they have a full belly and they don't go riot because they think it's enough and they save energy. could be.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. That's a possibility. Also, I believe that Pep Guardiola right now doesn't have any aesthetical aspiration with this Manchester City. What he had with Barcelona and Bayern is a little bit gone for me. In fact, Manchester City, this is a personal thought, okay, but I do believe that they are a little bit more formulaic than they were before, and definitely more formulaic than Barcelona and Bayern. I mean, the positional game of Manchester City has cut the wings of the likes of Jack Grealish or Mateus Nunes, and I hope that this doesn't happen to Savinho. But for example, City, I didn't like them a lot this season. I was disappointed with their second half against Arsenal. Against Newcastle United, the draw was about right. And now without Rodri, let's see how they fare. Not that I'm saying that they are not favourites for this game. They are, and I'm going to back them, okay? But without Rodri, Manchester City this season, especially in the important games, are going to suffer a little bit. The other day, I was looking at the stats of the game against Newcastle, and Manchester City recorded an 87% of passing accuracy, which is a lot, but is low for their own standards. And that has to do with the fact that Rodri is missing. It was the lowest passing accuracy of Manchester City in the Premier League since March. So playing without Rodri is not easy, but that's for another games. Here, Manchester City has enough firepower to clinch a victory, get the 3 points against the Slovan Bratislava, and start thinking about the next game. Since I don't like the individual markets at all, the collective markets at all, or the full-time or whatever, and I will have to go for a crazy handicap, and you are right, Edu, Manchester City, if they score the second, they may not go for the third one with the appetite that they would have gone years ago. I'm going to focus perhaps on a third time scoring genius just turning up. So Erling Haaland, for example, to score 2 goals or more and wrap it up before the 60th minute, to give you an example, that pays 2.4. But basically what I'm saying is that this game is not for me. If I back anything, it's Erling Haaland to score and to score a brace. So Erling Haaland to score a brace, 2.4. A brace or more.
And check the lineup. Perhaps we see heavy rotation on this one from Guardiola. Ronan, I think you have a suggestion for exact score.
I do indeed, and I think it disagrees a bit with Alvaro saying they might shut up shop after they get an early lead, because I think if there is some sort of rotation, there will be players in that Man City squad and in the starting 11 on Tuesday night that will be determined to prove their worth to Pep Guardiola, to show that you should be starting us more often. We are players who are capable of assisting and scoring goals and racking up a big scoreline. So I think they can rack up a big scoreline. We've seen it in the first match. Slovan Bratislava lost 5-1 to Celtic, and Celtic are no Man City. So I've been looking through the historical results. Man City's biggest wins in the Champions League: 7-0 against Leipzig there a couple of seasons ago, and against Schalke, both in the round of 16. That was back in 18-19. They've won 6-0 once against Shakhtar, 5-0 twice. But amazingly, Slovan Bratislava's heaviest defeat in the Champions League was 2 weeks ago against Celtic, 5-1. They have never lost a bigger match, so this could be it. And I've been looking at their historical defeats. They've never lost more than 6-0 in a competitive game. One of them was to Spurs in the 1962-63 Cup Winners' Cup. The others were in the Mitropa Cup, which was the predecessor to the European Cup, long ago. I don't think any of us are old enough to remember that one. So I think this could be one where Man City score lots of goals. So total goals over 4 in this one is an option, 1.95. Man City Asian handicap -3 is 1.9, because you have to go with those sort of ones. But I'm going for a correct score here, like you've teased. Correct score 0-6 to equal Slovan Bratislava's biggest ever defeat. So 6-0 to Man City is 15. Wow. Yeah, I think that could be an option here, but you have to be very bold to go with that one.
Well, it would fit GP's tip, Man City -5, Asian handicap -5. Filosofia Savinho to score, for instance.
Yes.
You can add it.
Yeah, very quickly, I just want to say something about Manchester City. I was saying true, you are right, to Ronan, because it's true that there are many players. It's not that they have a point to prove, right? But they want to be in the lineup. The likes of Phil Foden, for example, if they see the opportunity to score a few goals, they will go for it. 100%. I agree with that. But there is something about Manchester City that we have to be said as well. This season, they have become very reliant on Erling Haaland more than ever before. And In the past, Manchester City had the likes of Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Jesus, even Cole Palmer, players who have at least once in their career scored over 20 goals in one season. But now, you look at Manchester City squad, and Savinho, Doku, and Grealish, who are and Bernardo Silva, the wingers, I don't think that these are players who can score more than 10 goals per season. So that's why I think that Manchester City is a team with less firepower than they had before. They got great wingers, dribblers, but not necessarily great scorers. That's why I went for Haaland. Because I think that Savinho, Doku, and the likes, Foden, of course, is a different story, but they don't score many goals. Manchester City sometimes feels like if Haaland doesn't score the goals, who is going to do that for us?
Yeah, well, my main tip for this one was Erling Haaland to score 2 or more goals at 240, the same as you. So maybe he scores 5 of those 6 goals. Perhaps
This would have been a Julian Alvarez game, no, last season. But
exactly. Exactly, but look at the amount of players who Cole Palmer scored the other day 4. Gabriel Jesus is not playing, but we know that he's a scorer. Sterling, same thing. You know, these players are gone.
By the way, Philosophy is telling us check Slovan to score. Both things to score is 2.8. In case you think, why not? Slovan can score a goal like they did at Celtic Park. Well, guys, this is over. Before we leave, 2 things. By the way, we have to say that check our Tipster competitions. We are at the end of the month, so tomorrow you have an opportunity to start our monthly competition and also our yearly competition. And on top of it, we are going to start a Premier League Tipster competition and NFL Tipster competition. So check our website because very likely tomorrow you are going to be able to participate also in our Tipster competition for the Premier League and for the NFL. Is for free and you can get some cash prize. So all is good. And there you have. And guys, let's finish. Ronan, safe bet?
My safe bet could be any German team to win, but Stuttgart to win, 1.49.
ACCA, safe bet, Alvaro?
Another German side, Borussia Dortmund to win, 148.
Full trust on Germany. Alvaro, ACCA?
Dortmund to win, Asian handicap minus 1.5 for Inter, Leverkusen to win. Altogether 367.
There are so many possibilities for ACCAs with a lot of favorites in this Tuesday. Ronan, yours?
Yeah, I decided not to go for the German teams to win, but I went for them to score lots of goals. Total goals over 3 in both Leverkusen Milan and Dortmund Celtic. That's 3.65.
Well, you've been very successful also in our Bundesliga shows going for goals this season. Thanks, Ronan. Thanks, Alvaro. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.